We're a group of Gen Xers who became aware of our neurodiversity later in life. Join us as we share stories, interesting topics, and talk to special guests. Welcome to Season 2 of This Is How My Brain Works.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of This Is How My Brain Works. Today, we've got the full crew. I'm Krista, and we've got Sarah Hines, Michael Collins, and Jason Rudofsky. Hi, everyone. So today we did our little, as you all know, we do a little chitter chat before we get on here and talk about what we want to talk about. And it is Autism Awareness Month. And just for a timestamp, we are just a few days after RFK Jr. gave some comments about autism in a speech. And we all wanted to sort of come around and talk about that. So when you hear this, it might be several weeks later, but that's where we are in time. And what occurred to me as we were talking about this, because there's a lot of misinformation about why we've gone from a long time ago hardly having any autism or ADHD to now them saying that 1 in 33 people are actually somewhere underneath the neurodivergent umbrella, and it's being talked about as if it's like this new epidemic. And why is it happening now, and why are we seeing it so much now? And I think there's a lot of reasons for that we've discussed in previous episodes about how, changing of diagnoses, realizing that things are much closer. Autism and ADHD are actually better friends than I think people have thought that they were in the past. And just new research, and I don't know, listening to girls, that was a big one when we brought in one whole entire gender. But I also had this aha moment today about how sensory driven our world is right now. And how, when you think about like my dad, who I know, who is on the spectrum in some way, undiagnosed, but when he went to school, there weren't phones, screens, smart boards, music in the classrooms. All of this stuff that is a sensory palooza did not exist. They sent him outside and told him
There wasn't any traffic.
They sent him outside and told him to play. He went and caught snakes in the backwoods, came home, I don't know, fixed cars, but it wasn't the sensory palooza we have. So when people say, why does everybody seem so extra afraid right now? Or nowadays, or why are there more meltdowns, or why are people, why is it showing up more as opposed to just being hidden where we all suffer in silence? I just wanted to, open up the idea of, here are my two questions for the group. We have talked a lot about this being a disorder. It's in the names of things. What kind of paradigm shift would it be for you if you just thought of this as your brain working differently than what this world provides you comfort for, right? This world does not provide comfort for the way you work. So it's not that your brain is disordered, it's that we're living in a time that our brains don't match what's out there. So what if that was a paradigm shift, that you don't have a disorder, your brain just works beautifully differently. B, and I know Jason want to talk about this, what are the things that do trigger us? And then C, what do you think about the whole sensory, the sort of the uptick of some of these like meltdowns and things that we're seeing, plus just the sensory-ness of our lives? There's the floor.
I think, so you're saying, what if it wasn't classified as a disorder? The first thing that popped in my mind is it kind of, the first thing that popped in my mind is like, it gives me agency, because I no longer am like ashamed or trying to fit into something, and then feeling less than because I'm struggling to do that. Kind of gives me agency to live my life how I need to live my life. It's okay for me to, for example, maybe steer clear of an environment that might be overwhelming, or create some flooding. And and we talk about this a lot in terms of the tools that we're learning about, tools that help us and help with decision making, either in the moment or, kind of forecasting out like how we're going to plan something. So I think that's the first thing that pops into my mind, is like just having more agency and feeling less shame about how I live my life. And I'll just stop there. Let Rudy and Sarah hop in on that initial comment.
I love how everybody's writing. Look at the tools we've learned in the last. Everyone's like writing down their thoughts before they speak. Look at us. Look at us and our tools.
So that actually leads me into what I think about your point A. I love a list. Oh my God. I love a list. When you tell me you have an A, B, and a C, I'm gonna write that down. So that's a hack for me. When people are talking to me, I love a list. But paradigm shift, it made me think, honor yourself as an organism, or put another way, observe yourself as an organism. And I think that's kind of it. And instead of being a disorder, it's a different order. And we can manage that. I can manage that most effectively in this world that is organized for a different order than me. I can live better and happier and with less shame, to Michael's point, by just observing and then honoring myself and I use the word organism because it describes me and everybody else. We're all these just organisms moving through our environment, being stimulated how we are stimulated by what we encounter. And those of us who are ordered differently than the environment has been organized, we sometimes have more moments where we bump in as an organism to stimulus. That is a lot. And that kind of brings us to that sensory palooza, but I'll wait on that and hear what Rudy Jason has to say.
Before Jason says, I do want to have the caveat for anybody who's listening that I want to recognize that there are people on the spectrum who are nonverbal, who have comorbidities, who this is I don't think any of us right here are talking about the challenges at that level, who really need assistance. I'm all for every amount of assistance possible. I think we're really talking about, for us, those of us who did not know what was going on in our brains until we were older, and we're trying to navigate what this looks like for us now, and then reconcile our past. So I this is I don't want to take away from those families and those kids who are going through that at all. I just want to classify sort of where we're coming from. Jason.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a lot to say. I think without question, the rapidity, is that a word? Rapidity.
I think so.
Like rapidness?
Yeah.
Rapidness, thank you. Rapidity.
I like rapidity.
What's happened over the last 30 years as far as technology has increased undoubtedly our anxieties, our sensitivities. It has sort of shed light on some of. It's like we were walking down a dirt road and then all of a sudden we had to jump on a treadmill, and it's going extremely fast. We're never turned off anymore. We're never turned off. I don't care if you turn your computer off at 9 o'clock every night. It's causing issues for sleep in all of us. The screens, everything. We're not turned off. And I think what it has done and because we're not turned off, it's created this sort of, we're on this treadmill all the time, it feels like. There's no downtime. People are getting texts and emails in the middle of the night. Whether or not you turn your phone off, you're almost aware, you're aware of it. It's just, it's a trigger for me in how much I see the use of phones all the time and the inability. I feel a little bit lucky that we got it. We were introduced to this technology late teens, maybe, or early
Oh,
teens. Things were developing, but I'm talking about the
I
phone,
was in my
computers,
20s. Come
Internet
on now. No,
is
yeah,
20.
internet. I
30s.
mean, and you know what? It was fine as it relates, and I mean, obviously, we all know that just our discussion is proof enough that over the last 20 years, the spectrum, having autism, whatever that entails, ADHD, all of it has really started to come to light. Now, I'm no scientist, but I know that it affects those who are creating babies, right? There's stress levels. And as you start moving that down the line,
but they've also
just the
found out
nature of
it's also just
humanity. And as
hereditary. I mean, they've also just
hereditary.
found out that it's hereditary, right? I mean, like a big piece of that puzzle is that it's genetic. That's why all of us realized, or many of us realized our issues through our kids.
And in hindsight, the things I see in my parents are
Absolutely.
so enlightening. I mean, and it's daily, memories and things, and putting those pieces together, and seeing my parents as being people who probably were neurodiverse in a lot of different ways, but and even at an older age, unable to even conceive of what that is. They don't really know
No,
what
they don't want to talk
autism
about
is.
it.
They don't know what autism is. They don't
Yeah.
know why, our kids have certain sensitivities, anxieties. They have no concept of it. Can't they just get over it? Well, that's how they lived. Like no one ever mentioned anything about it. It's just like you get over it. But yeah, that's interesting. What I see both in my kids is easier to see, and I'm still trying to figure out about my parents and how they lived and how they even it's pretty incredible. And so I think all of our triggers are for everyone have increased. And we're
I
more
feel like I'm afraid a lot. Like I'm already afraid when I go out in the world because of what you're saying, Jason. Like my 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 levels of being able to I don't know, cope or whatever, they've just shifted. And I don't know if it's because I'm older or what it is, but I also have to believe that there's just more. There's more of everything.
yeah.
And
I,
so
I
it's
think
like
this is,
asking us to not have sensory issues, and we're standing in the middle of like, Tokyo, or like
I
I
mean,
think of
if
yeah.
all
you
of those
want to
pictures
just
of
go
like
to this,
Tokyo or Hong Kong,
how
and
about
that's what it feels like.
we talked about just going to Safeway. You want to get a Triscuit. You want to get some Triscuits. They only had Wheat Thins, Triscuits, and one other cracker.
Right.
Now, and that is sometimes I found myself being there for 10 minutes trying to figure out which cracker I'm going to get. What chips am I going to get? There was never this. I mean, now the decisions we have to make I mean, it's part of it. It's a small part, but it's still like the decisions and the options and the everything at your fingertips.
But I think this is affecting humanity universally. I
Of
think,
course,
like Rudy, I
100%.
think you said people's anxieties, I think across the board have risen. We're not able to keep up with the rapidity, the inputs, the sensoriness of it all. It's like our evolution can't keep up with it or something, It's like we're still operating on this lizard brain thing that, we're not fighting off saber-toothed tigers anymore, but that's still part of us. And that happened how long ago? So now it's like our evolution can't keep up with technology. And I think I'm as I'm listening to this, I think it's just like this universal thing happening, but then it might present more intensely in the neurodiverse population. And so whether someone might be able to tolerate, a sound like a spoon on a, on a, table, or a, 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 a coffee cup. They might be able to tolerate it, but they're able to kind of like bring that thing down and maintain focus on the other thing. There's so much of it now that we cannot buffer these things or bring things up and down. And it's just like, and so the way it presents in a neurodiverse mind is just, I think, the overwhelm those things. And so maybe because it's presenting more intensely, that's why we're finding more people that are getting these diagnoses,
Or they're seeking help because it's more acute.
Or yeah, I mean that's true. It's like seeking help, but then also resonating with things that are online as far as like talking about this type of stuff. They're like, oh my gosh. And then but like the intensity of that, but then like the numbers, it's like, well, why are the autism diagnosis is going up? Well, it's more clearly presenting maybe, or like with ADHD. And then
Well, here's the interesting thing, Michael, that I'll throw in that I heard, and I'm going to say something that I've heard, and I've heard it several times, but I'm not going to be able to double check it and tell you exactly where it's from. But I've heard that parents of autistic kids have the same PTSD red flags or ringers as a combat veteran. And so now think about that. So think about generational autism. So my dad's got autistic traits. I have autistic traits. My kid has autistic traits. And now, so with my, and I'm the woman in all this. So with that, I mask it, I shut it down because my job is to take care of that kid who's got meltdowns, who's doing the things, the autism is showing up more under normal, words or whatever than what perhaps I had or my father had. So now I get to the point where I finally realized that I too have autistic traits, because I did not realize that at the moment. And now not only am I sort of trying to manage what that means for me, what I looked like, what things looked like my whole life, but also I cannot not acknowledge that I may be ultra afraid or sensitive at this point in my 50s because I also managed walking my kiddo through this in a more acute fashion. And so I have less in my cup now, but I'm still managing the world in a way that never stops. And I think I'm a pretty decent example probably of a lot of women in their 50s who are coming to this. And I don't want to say it's just women, because I know men are too. Y'all are too. But I think, I don't have a lot left. Right? It's so hard to say that, but that is the truth. You're always like trying to find more to put into the bucket of care. And it's like, whoo, we are, and because the world does not support us in any way, shape, or form, it's really an interesting process, I think, that we walk through at this age.
well, the world, I don't know if it supports a human nervous system, just in general.
No, it's
right?
completely disregarded it. I think it's disregarded it.
I mean, a nervous system is a very individual thing, but there's some universal aspects to it, right? And
Well
it's
said.
going to react and respond to certain things. And to go from regulation to dysregulation, it's not like, oh, reboot it, and in 2 seconds you're back up and running. It takes time to reboot,
Well,
So
the nervous
Krista,
system is
you're
directly, I
afraid
mean, everything runs through the brain. It's
the
changing our brains.
it is I think it's the polyvagal mind body connection. It's like you can, as Sarah was saying earlier, observation is huge. Observe what you're feeling where in your body, and that's going to tell you some things about how to make decisions or how to take care of yourself, or develop these coping mechanisms that Krista's talking about.
Well, it was a lot easier in the 50s and 60s when you were on the farm and you could just walk out into the field and be like, I don't feel good today. You know what I'm saying? I got a little something in my hip don't feel right. You know, nowadays it's like this, got to keep going. I don't care. Maybe I'll call the doctor next week about my hip. I don't know. I've got a
Not
thing
listening.
in my hip. Like there's no time. We're not afforded any sort of time to, I mean, this group, our sort of generation, we understand how, and I think our age too, we understand, and Krista was just talking about it, like she's given so much, you know, how can she replenish her personal cup? Like we understand about sort of taking stock of what we've got going on at the time. I think that has to do with age, but we also, because through our, you know, our discussions, have realized and can accept what's happened in the past. You know what I mean? Kids these days are, you know, I mean, and we've seen with parenting generations below us, their kids now are already, you know, being treated as early as how old? 4, 5 years old, where we never got treated at all. But we sort of understand that we need to take care of ourselves and that we will find the time to take a break to sort of take stock of it.
What if it takes 20 minutes to go from dysregulation to regulation? And you have these things that
say that slower.
Well, if you're dysregulated, to get back into a space of regulation, right, it can take up to 20 minutes, and you probably need to extract yourself from whatever situation got you dysregulated and get into an environment that is going to support you getting regulated, right? And that's going to take up to 20 minutes. And then, like, well, I don't have 20 minutes. So to Jason's point, I'm going to play through.
And we don't even have people, sometimes, like I was in a situation with one of the, you know, the things that I do, one of my clients, it was a paying, you know, situation, but repeatedly, I have said, I am overwhelmed. I need to unhook and come back to this with my full self. And repeatedly, the answer has been, okay, but we're just going to keep on, we're going to be right there. We're going to be right there. What do you need? So repeatedly I'm ignored with the boundary I've set. And now we're at the point where I will be making other choices and not being there any longer, because, you know, what I have to recognize is that I can't work in that type of situation where you don't understand the need for space, and that sometimes you know, I was working with Fox Sports as a coach, and one of the directors of their live TV said sometimes the fastest thing you can do is to stop, slow down, and start again. And if I don't have people I work with around me who understand that very neurodivergent and creative principle of sometimes you need to unhook, walk away, take a breath, take the 20 minutes, remove from the situation and come back to it as your better and full self. Then those aren't people I can work with, period, any longer. Not happening.
Can I give 2 anecdotes really quick that happened to me this week? One is a kid, probably 30 years old, who he brought him into work. It was his first day. We were riding around. I don't know how it came up, but he shared with me all of his, you know, he's like, I got a lot of crazy things with food. I have these anxieties. Like if we both order cheeseburgers, you get tater tots and I get fries. And as soon as it's put down, you reach over and grab a fry. You know, kids do that. He's like, I will not touch those fries. My point is, well, and then the second story is a gentleman who's our age, a friend, has gotten into dozens of altercations, pretty bad ones, which have caused a lot of stress and, you know, forced him out of apartments and things and situations because it's police, you know. And I said to him, have you ever been in a situation when someone is poking at you or, you know, repeatedly saying things that trigger you and where you get to that point of anger where then you kicked out of an apartment? Do you ever? And he really couldn't answer it. And as someone who's triggered easily, and you talk, Michael, about those 20 minutes, I wish I could take those 20 minutes sometimes. And it's just in that moment, it's like, I'd love to step back out of the situation. But my point is, you see that generation is able to just disclose some of their anxieties or, things that maybe look weird or crazy in a world. So the younger kid could express to me his anxieties just about food. And then we've got someone who is just now being medicated and diagnosed with some of the issues at 60 years old and still has issues coping face to face with people and doesn't have the ability to just say to someone, I need a minute. It always goes to a level 10 like that. And it's sad, it's unfortunate.
But part of that is because I had it happen. I had it happen this week, though. I had it happen this week, though, where I was not my best self. And I literally was like, this is a moment that I would normally say, I'm so sorry, I'm going to take a step. And I couldn't. I was like, no, I wasn't mean. I didn't hit anybody, I didn't do anything. But I mean, I was labeled, as I often am, as an autistic human. You were being intense. I'm not wrong, but I was intense.
How often do you look back? How often do you look back on those little situations and think to yourself, if only I could have taken that 20 minutes, or it would have been.
Well, here's the thing that I recognize about myself is that I understand the masking to not be intense, because I've been told I've been intense my whole life. So I understand how to come in and be like, I'm going to be a little softer because you need to be made to feel comfortable with my directness. Like I've done the dance my whole life. But what has happened recently is that I'm frayed right now. So the ability to give a flying F about your desire to be comfortable in a situation where a direct statement needs to be made is smaller. But the problem is that the outcome of that is not always what I want it to be, because the other person is going to do what the other person does. We have about 5 minutes left, and I want Sarah to make sure she does. She's going to land some big thing on us right now. I know, because that's the Sarah way. So I want to give her time. You're on mute or something.
Whatever. God, so judgy.
Don't be so direct.
Yeah, wow. Coming in intense, man. Oh, wait, that's me. So have I ever I'll give Michael a minute to recover. That was a lot, I know. Have I mentioned boomer humor before? Does this sound familiar? Okay, it's a new concept in my life. And let me look at my notes so we were talking about just observing ourselves. You had your A. We're differently ordered, your A point. We are differently organized, ordered, etc. And so because of that, I'm observing myself. And I have observed that triggers, I have them, many of them. I wish I didn't have so many. I agree there's a sensory palooza that's impacting how many triggers I have. And so boomer humor has been one of the ways that I deal with them. And I realize it's basically sarcasm. It's basically what my parents did to me, that they think it's funny. So I will self-immolate almost on my boomer humor. And then as I do the step A, which is observe myself as an organism, I realize that boomer humor is hurting my feelings. And
sarcasm.
I'm using it to hurt the feelings of people who are triggering me. And boomer humor is the equivalent. It's kind of like the backhanded compliment. It's the sarcastic remark. It's the passive aggressive, whatever. And often it is actually funny. And if someone gets upset at you for saying it, you really rightfully can be like, oh, you don't have a sense of humor. So I have started to call it out in myself and in others. And by labeling it boomer humor, it's really easy for everybody to observe and say, oh yeah, I don't love that. So I don't know. What do you guys think of my boomer humor? Can you think of examples?
I guess an
I just
example,
want to tell
is
you
there an
quickly,
example?
the gentleman I was talking to, and he said exactly this, Sarah. The gentleman I was talking to, long story short, the superintendent at his apartment building said he could plant something at a certain point. He dug a hole there, broke a water line. They had some whatever ado about it. And then, like a day later, the superintendent was walking by him and said, break any more water lines today? Right? Break any
Funny
more.
you should
You
say
know
that,
what? And he
Jason.
told me
But
this, and he said
wait, before you go on, Jason.
absolutely
Wait.
lost it.
We just did like a telepathy tapes thing, because when you were telling that story, I wrote down boomer humor because everything about that story in my own like maybe it was intuition, maybe it was telepathy. I don't care. Maybe it's Maybelline, but I go on because I'm not surprised that it was boomer humor that caused him to lose his top. So please
No, I mean,
go
this is
back and
a,
finish.
you
I'm
know,
sorry.
he's a little older than we are, so he even comes from, and it, and now it really sheds light after what you just said. I can understand someone. I mean, I've found myself to be very guilty of that. It's a defense mechanism. There's a defense mechanism in in the sarcasm,
Yep.
right? And 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 that passive aggressiveness is filled with
That
sarcasm.
suck it up attitude.
It's a deflection because you feel, you know, that you're being blamed, or I don't know. It's a long list of things, but he
Protecting.
said that exact thing to me today. He said, that guy said that to me, and he's like, I lost it. I
Mm.
lost it. Like that was he's like, you know what the straw was that broke the camel's back? That's what he said to me. Like, this is what really, and I told him, never come back, never, you know, I don't know, I should tell the story, but it got way, way out of hand like that. And he has no mechanism. He's like, I'm working on it, but he has no mechanism. And he's found himself in situations where, I mean, numerous situations. And
So
it's hard to watch. It's really hard to watch. And
I
you know what? I felt just kind of bad. Like I'm telling him that, have you ever told the guy these are some of the things, like I'm just now learning how to say things that I'm not ashamed or embarrassed about, like I can't do that, or that doesn't make me feel good, or could you stop doing that? I'm just now kind of learning how to do that to save myself. You know what I mean? To help
Yeah.
myself. Anyway, sorry, Krista.
No, you're fine. Sarah, did you want to say anything? Because I'm going to wrap us out.
Just really quickly, boomer humor. I use it the same way I would ouch, but it's both. So like someone says something that hurts your feelings or that you don't like, or you setting boundaries,
ouch.
basically. Ouch is a very quick one word way to set a boundary to, you know, and just give yourself that time and that pause. And so is boomer humor. And boomer humor is a little bit more directive, and it gives everybody a moment to go, wait, what are you talking about? And then to realize, oh, that's like World War II humor. That's not so funny anymore. Anyway, it's a hack, y'all. That's all. The end. Sorry, Krista.
Oh, so where I'm going to wrap us out, because and I want to come back to the autism awareness and to that piece of the puzzle we were talking about in the very beginning as we wrap ourselves out. One of the things that's happening online right now, also this week, is that we are about a week after season 3 of Love on the Spectrum is on Netflix, and you're seeing a lot of posts about how people are craving the type of direct kindness that they're seeing these autistic young people use when they're dating. So they'll come out of a date and they'll just say, you know, I had a good time. I don't think this is a romantic connection. And thanks so much. And everybody goes away was like, thanks for the directness. All right. You know, and so I want to put a plug out there again, to wrap us back into this idea that our brains work differently, and that it's not necessarily bad or wrong or shameful. It is just, we have a different way of functioning in the world, and we will find those people in our lives, as the four of us have found each other, that we can talk to each other and love each other in a way that our brains understand. There is community out there for you. So that's how I'd like to end this episode. Thank you for listening. Please do all the things, like, subscribe, tell your friends. Let's go. And we'll see you at the next time on This Is How My Brain Works.
If you like this episode of This Is How My Brain Works, please like, subscribe, and share. If you'd like more info on the hosts, guests, and topics, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening.